Hi and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday, the 26th of June 2022. This is your host, Nigel Creaser, and today we've got the second part of my interview with Penny Pullan. So enjoy. So this week we are again supported by Tamplo. Tamplo is a online tool that turns meetings into actions and has a number of different features. The bit I'm going to talk about today is around the project and task management and the follow-up. Essentially, you have a clear dashboard that shows you an overview of scheduled tasks, alert for late tasks, an overview of team's progress. It saves you jumping into your Outlook and being diverted by that morass of email that we get. You can create your own daily plan in there, or you can, as a project manager, you may be assigning tasks to people, and those people can look at those, have their own daily plans, adding in their own specific items they've got to do, as well as the things allocated to them. From the project management point of view, you get a dedicated dashboard with a list of tasks, knowing what people are working on each project, and there's a load of collaboration capability in there, with the goal of getting no task left undone, more efficiency and motivation, and clear action plans. So if you want to see what this is all about, jump along to tinyurl.com/Nigel Creaser Tamplo. That's all one word, Nigel Creaser Tamplo. Have fun. Well, what's been happening with me? Well, I've got how many podcasts? I'm looking on my screen here. I've got 7 podcasts in the bag. Had a couple of chats this week and 3 last week, I think it was. So I'm really well ahead of the game. I've got 4 more that are in my schedule to interview. So that'll take me at the moment to the end of the year, and that's with me increasing the release schedule. So that's fab, really. It's great to get this number ahead of the game. It's brilliant. But as ever, having more guests and on as soon as possible. So anyone who wants to jump on the show, please get in touch, and we can get you on there. So what else has been going on? Oh, from a personal health and stuff point of view, I've started running again. I damaged my knee earlier in the year. I probably mentioned it. I told everyone. And for the first time, I ran a 5K run the other day, which was great. I was so pleased to be able to do that, because it's been since March, beginning of March, since I've been able to run, and running is important to me and my mental health. So it was really good to get out there and start running a little bit. Though it was walking, but hopefully in the coming weeks I'll be back to full on running. So that's really cool. What else has happened? Well, actually, hopefully you're hearing a better quality of audio today. I invested a little bit of money into a better microphone. Although the headset that I've been using just makes it a bit easier, a better microphone on a little poise angle stand thing, and one of these things that stops your spit going in there, and a new video camera as well, webcam. So I'm hoping to increase the quality and frequency of the YouTube videos that come up. So if you are listening over YouTube, hopefully the video quality will be better and the audio will be better. The mic is really, I've wanted one of these mics for ages. It's called a Samsung Meteor, and it looks like a little, I would describe it as if for those old enough to remember the original Flash Gordon movies, it reminds me of the ships from Flash Gordon. So it's really quite funky, and the sounds are pretty good on it as well, I believe. So that's it, really. I'm going to keep it short and sweet this week. Not a great deal to chat about, and hand over now to the second part of the conversation with Penny Pullan, and be ready for next week's one, which is with Dr. Troy Hall, next week, fortnight away, 19th of May, I think. Not 19th of May, 10th of July, that one will be coming out. So speak to you soon. Cheers now. Bye.
so let's go to this next level out. So we've had self in the center, we've had others at the next circle, and then the next circle out was split into three. We had technology, virtual meetings, and then that asynchronous working between meetings. And now we've gone to the furthest out of the circles, which is the complications. And I've got four there, one of which is wide time zones, which you and I know from international projects, but probably didn't, didn't affect too many people when the pandemic hit. There's cultural differences, and those can be national cultures, but also professional cultures. I mean, actuaries and salespeople, for example, very different, but also company cultures. Those are, you need to negotiate those languages. Even if you have English as your first language, I'm married to a New Zealander, and New Zealand English is subtly different. South African English is another one. If people say, if a South African says, "I'll do that just now," do you know what they mean? When are they likely to do it?
Probably never.
Absolutely. You've had this. You've experienced this, haven't you? Or
not with South African, but I did, and I did go on some when we started working with Oracle, when we had our Indian development area come in. That was the first time, so we had a lot of cultural training that was done. And how much of that now is different, because that was 20 years ago, nearly, or just over 20 years ago. So things would have changed culturally anyway, but there were certain things in there, and you can kind of hear. I think the one that I remember being taught was at the time was, if someone says they'll try to do it, it means there's absolutely no chance they can do it. But they're not going to tell you, because if you're in charge, they weren't going to tell you. And I don't know whether that's still similar or whether it's changed, but at that time, 20 years ago, that was the thing that was So quite often it's kind of I'll do it in a minute doesn't mean in a minute. In British normal English, speak normal English, there you go, British English, whatever it is. But you're right, I understand that. You've languages, just people don't understand some of the colloquialisms that I use.
Absolutely. And you and I, as British native mother tongue English speakers, we are, as a group, pretty awful to people who are business professionals who speak English as their second, third, or fourth language. There's a sort of subset of professional English that is used by people who don't have English as their mother tongue, which is a much smaller subset and doesn't include all those colloquialisms and those things that you were talking about. And we really ought to reduce, if we have a wide range of languages, we should make it easy for people. We need to adapt, we need to facilitate, we need to reduce our language down to that sort of business subset, really, if we can. And then the other one that's interesting is the generational differences, because they're huge. And that's something that people haven't been thinking about, but until quite recently, I've noticed others beginning to pick this up. I don't know if you ever learned to type with a typewriter, but that's how I learned to type. So I'm accurate. You had to be accurate, otherwise it would look a complete mess. I still do that. I have perfectly formed sentences in my text to my kids who think it's terribly funny. And anyway, just say, don't you know that you shouldn't send texts that are that long, Mum? And their texts, they can go back and change things, but because they've never got used to accuracy. But there's so many other things built in with the generations around how we approach technology. It's really fascinating, and that all plays into this.
I think it is. I have a friend who signs off their posts on Facebook. They're in the older generation, and they sign it off. It's there, it's got their name next to it, but they put so-and-so comma where they're from, kind of thing. It's as if it was a formal letter. And I think there's a quite a, I think in work scenario, and I was reading something as well about the fact that we now have the widest mix of working generations and age gaps than there's ever been before, in sort of in the modern era. Certainly, it's not uncommon to have people in you'll be dealing with who are 50, 60 years different potentially. And maybe that's pushing it, but you know, you
That's
can have
probably pushing it.
50,
But certainly,
50 certainly. You can have
yeah,
people who are working in an organization, so most people in their 60s, but you can have people who are still in their 70s and people who are in their 20s working on the same piece of work or working together on something. And I think it's, and when you think of it, that thing, you think of the difference. And it's something that struck me quite a long time ago, because I grew up 70s, 80s. And when someone said to me 1990, so that's kind of well, I was 21 then. Yeah. So 19, it is as long ago now to 1990. I think it was 1990, that from 1990 was to the war or something like that. Or something. It was it's the 70s or 80s. Whatever it was. Yeah, I'm doing my maths wrong there, isn't it? Because it's 30 years.
I'm just doing some maths on a bit of paper.
It wasn't the 90s, was it? It was the 70s, I think it was. Basically, whatever it was a time when I was quite young, and I understood why I didn't understand. Like, it seemed a long way away, the war did, the Second World War. And now when you think now that period of time was as far away, and you don't think, for me, you don't think of it as being such a technological difference and a generational and a cultural difference to what it was. So the 70s and 80s culture compared to what we've got now, it is, we've grown up with completely different things, and we're growing up with different things, aren't we? Yeah, you probably got the maths there now, haven't you, for me?
Well, I've just scribbled it down.
This is why I'm a failed accountant, you see.
Just going back to if you go back to 1983, that's about halfway back to the end of the Second World War, not the First World War.
Yeah.
1983, I was doing my O-levels, as was. I've now revealed my age to everybody. But yes, so that seems not that far away, and yet.
Yeah, and when you think of it as being, when our parents, they'd have been looking back to the war. So my parents were born just as the war was starting. But that, and then you think generations that are in the between there that are coming up. That really hammers it home. That thing, I thought, it really made me sit back and go, geez.
Absolutely, yeah. So in the book, I talk about, we've got the baby boomers in work now. We've got baby boomers. We've got Gen X, Gen Y, so the millennials, and Gen Z. And I just talk, and what forms people in different generations is what's happening when you're growing up and in the early teenagers, especially, and very early part of your career. So a big thing for mine would have been the end of the Iron Curtain, the Tiananmen Square massacre. I can remember that happening just as my finals were finishing, and just thinking, it was meant to be a really happy time, and then just awful hearing the news about that. And just lots of things that are happening in the world. They have a real impact on the way you think and the way you react to things. But anyway, for those who can see this on the video, I've also showed that this whole model, all these circles, I've now put, for the new book, I've put it in a huge splat that says hybrid on it. Because actually you might think hybrid, we can forget about all this virtual stuff we've learned. But guess what? This virtual leadership applies massively when you're hybrid, and it's harder when you're hybrid because you do need to think about all this stuff, but also think about how can we level the playing field between those who are remote and those who are in the room or in the office.
When you start looking at all of those different puzzle pieces that you're talking there, and you just a meeting of 10 people, and you start thinking about how many connotations and combinations there are going to be in that group. So from yourself and your preferences, the others' preferences, the technologies they use to, the role you're available. As soon as you start getting those ones on the outside as well, and those are the ones that are really driving the interactions between the people and the people and with you, I can see how it starts to become a bit of a mind-boggling of kind of like, hang on, how do I make sure I cover language generation? Like in a room where you've got language and generation, forget everything else. that's enough to deal with, isn't it? Is a way that a generational person of a certain age will speak to someone else who has a different language in a different way, and straight away you've got about 6 connections there that are a problem. Then you say, right, okay, so drop in that time zone and the culture as well. And it's impossible, isn't it?
It's not impossible, but what I find helpful is that I spent a year writing this book and coming up with this model and the structure, is that you can imagine this in your head and you can be thinking, what's happening? What are the things I need to keep in my mind? What do I need to keep an eye on?
Yeah.
And if you read the book, it goes through in a lot of detail how to deal with each of these. So it gives tips and tools as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. But you see, by writing this and thinking it through, it becomes much clearer. And so other people can use it without having to spend a year thinking about it. That's a good thing about writing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And it just, again, immediate, even with that in front of you, if you start thinking about managing the team, the fact that you're aware of all of those combinations immediately, to me, becomes helpful. And immediately makes me think, oh, how am I doing? And in sometimes you manage some of this by gut, don't you? You don't consciously think about it. You kind of feel it. You think, oh, that person kind of likes that different. They're a bit different. Why isn't that working? And you kind of do it as a reaction rather than rather than being proactive with it. Whereas if you've got these teams that you're building and this, I suppose a lot of the stuff on the outside as well, and a lot is about they create the old model of the storming, forming, norming scenario. Those differences are what cause that, in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So this doesn't cover everything. This is just all the different aspects to think about. Developing the team, you need to go through the process to get people to high performing. I actually prefer the Drexler-Sibbett model for high performing teams when it comes to Vurtual, because it's a little bit more complex than the Tuckman model, which you've just referenced. And I think it's really important when you're Vurtual to really get to know each other, to make sure that everybody knows who everybody else is and what they contribute. And that's really important for hybrid people, remote people in the room, so that people make those connections. It's the sort of thing that if you muddle along in a team and you're all in the office, you all will bump into each other. You'll end up chatting over the kettle or the coffee machine or the water cooler or just the tap, if that's all you have. So a little bit of that can happen in the office, even if you don't attend to it, but it is important to attend to it. I'm going to switch away from the model, and if people want to see the model and they are listening to this, will there be some show notes that I can
absolutely
Brilliant.
So just as you've popped back up on there on the screen, and I'm just about to remove the pin, but I'll leave it there because we can see there that you've got your other book as well, Making Workshops Work, which is another one. Because surely just workshops, you get people in the room, tell them what you want them to do, and they do it, don't they? Isn't it straightforward?
No. And actually, you might not.
Hopefully, you know I'm winding you up here. Yeah.
Well, I'm being very calm and not wanting to give you not wanting to go. But yes, so you can see this book over here, this one here. There is a little yellow circle, and you probably can't read it, but it says, and especially the people who can't see it, it says in-person, virtual, and hybrid. So this takes, how do we make workshops work? How do we create collaboratively in this time that we're in? I wrote this in the pandemic, and it came out in 2021, in the middle of 2021. And because what I found was, and I planned this way before the pandemic and just never got around to writing it. And then suddenly it was needed. So I had to get on with it, which is good. But yeah, what I found is there are a lot of books and workshops, and all of it is about one group of people in a room together. And then they might have on about 273 4 pages on running a virtual meeting and nothing about hybrid. So what I've done in the book is I've integrated it completely. So right throughout, it has everything is thinking about in person, in everyone in the room, in person, when you've got everyone remote and when everyone is a mix of a hybrid mix of remote and in the room.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, the reason that meetings and workshops get a lot of bad press is because of the facilitation of them. People go there and they go, that was a waste of time. It could have been an email. I didn't need to be there for the whole meeting. All these different things. I couldn't get my point across.
Mm-hmm.
So-and-so knows it, or why didn't they send it? All these different things that will come out of the conversations and get in. And I've been in workshops virtually, even in the last few months, where I felt like everyone was on email. Right, so I wouldn't insist on people's putting the cameras on. That wasn't my way I was doing it. But and it was like really going through treacle, trying to get people engaged. And
what a waste of time.
Yeah.
It could have been fun. It could have been short. It could have been engaging, and it could have been effective. And most of that, yes, it's facilitation. And actually, this book is actually quite a lot around facilitation.
Yeah.
But it's about planning, designing your workshop or meeting so that you take all those things into account, not just turning up. And you need to do more if it's hybrid or completely if everyone's remote compared to if everybody's in the room, because you can flex a little bit more if you're all together in the room. Design your meeting and think about, what's the purpose? What are the people and who needs to be there when and why? And don't have anyone there who doesn't need to be there. If it's not the best use of their time, don't invite them, or just bring them in for a short bit. I think I'm preaching to the converted, aren't I? Here
you are, but I don't. But to be fair, I don't always do it. And I think I'm guilty of not doing it. And that session I was on about there, that specific one, it was my fault because I hadn't properly set out my expectations to those people. And I look back and I think it was hard work, but I hadn't properly done it. Now, that was through a bit of eagerness of mine and me assuming a few things that people would have understood what I was trying to do. So that picture before your virtual leadership, where you've got the person in the middle, you need to look at yourself quite often to go, is it me? Rather than sitting there going, well, why isn't everybody? It's right more than why haven't I done this? And I've been very fortunate to work with some in an organization where they had very, very experienced workshop planning teams and use some of their knowledge to put together some workshops where we had about 20, 30 people, and we're splitting up into 4 or 5 different workout groups, and it was a full day starting from beginning to end, but they worked through that planning, and we spent a lot of time going, how are we going to structure this? What's the media that we need here? How are we going to do it? Now, we didn't have virtual in that scenario, but it's the same sort of approach, isn't it? It's about understanding what you get the right people at the right time. Some people weren't able to attend entirely, so we made sure they attended, and the bit that they needed, in fact, I think we moved some stuff to say, oh, they're not available now. Let's do that later when they are available, because they are critical to it. And making sure you, like you say, getting the right people in the room. And there's nothing more frustrating than you being in a room when you want to make your point, but you haven't had a chance to because something else is being discussed, and then you've got to go. And I'm very much...
I'm going to jump in and just share something that I use quite a bit. This is what I call my magic 6. I don't know if you've seen this before.
No.
But these are the 6 things that it's really helpful to know if you are going to run a workshop or a meeting, and this is in the book as well. So the first thing is, we are here to. So what's the purpose of the session? Today we will. So what are the objectives? Taking that purpose and sort of breaking it down a little bit more. Our plan, what's our time plan? What's going to happen when? Who's doing what? How are the people involved? The roles? Who's doing what in the meeting? How we work together is probably one of the most important parts that people normally forget about. And it's, what do we get, one conversation at a time? What are we doing with phones? What are we going to be doing with emails? Because there's no point us sitting for 2 hours in a meeting when if we all focus, we could do it in 20 minutes. And then finally, what's next? So give an idea of what sort of actions will be coming out. So that's something that I use, and that is in the book, and that I talk through to help people as they plan their workshops and their meetings. And this is something I came up with in, you can see, 2007.
Yeah.
So a long time ago. Most things I want to change immediately, but this thing has worked so well that I haven't changed it at all.
Yeah, and it lays it out, doesn't it? It's kind of, and do you know what I like? The thing that just draws my attention straight away is who, what, and when.
What, when? That's just
Rather
a standard.
rather than the thing you get on, oh, let's have our meeting minutes, and the meeting minutes say something like description, date,
no,
assigned to. Let's use simple, and that you say
who
with
does
the language.
What by when? And then also you need to write down what decisions are made, and that should be enough for your minutes.
Yeah, and that's it. And
if it's not, record it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can go back and check.
And then
transcribe it.
Transcribe it. That's the technology side of it. Again, we're starting to get to that point, and I think the longer term, it's got to get to the point that using AI and things like that to spin up, right? It records it, and annotates it, pulls out the key decisions. So we've decided this. Yes, it knows, it pulls. Those sort of keywords are going to be critical to be able to do. You're going to do that by when, right? You're going to do that. That's something you apply, and I'm sure maybe it's a 5 years down the line, but we'll get to that kind of thing.
I use AI transcription, which is brilliant, but I think it's important to note down actions and decisions visually in a shared way so that everybody can see it during the meeting.
Yeah.
Because then you're agreeing the same actions.
Yeah.
Together at the same time. So I would probably say AI great for transcriptions.
Yeah.
Probably best to avoid AI though when it comes to picking out stuff perhaps.
Maybe.
That's my thought at the moment. Let's use it to augment, but everybody being able to eyeball and see those actions and decisions being written down as they are. It's actually really important, and I talk about that in the book as well. So there you are.
That's brilliant.
I've just given you a few samples of the stuff in the book.
Yeah. So I thank you for so much time, and I know we've had a few virtual working technology challenges through this call, a couple of them, some of them my own making, but we've got just thinking, you've got the 2 books there. You've got Virtual Leadership and you've got Making Workshops Work. Those are available in all the usual places, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, if your podcast listeners or viewers would like to get this latest one, Virtual Leadership, at a slight discount, if they're in the UK or the USA, they can use the discount code FBM20, but only on the Kogan Page website.
So, sorry, what was that?
FBM20.
FBM20 on the Kogan page.
Foxtrot Bravo Mike 20.
Cool. So if you will include that in the show notes, so people will be able to pull that out of there. That's brilliant.
And the other one is, in fact, they're both available on Amazon worldwide and any other booksellers, and they're both available on Kindle and other ebook providers as well.
Brilliant, superb.
And both of them, if people buy them, they sign up and get a full color. I mean, they can't print these in color; it just gets ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, I know.
So I provide a sort of workbook, a landscape full color PDF workbook for each of them. So if people then sign up once they've got the book, then they'll get that support and they can chat to me and so on as well.
Fantastic. And if people want to find out more about you, get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is probably via, LinkedIn, as long as you look for Penny Pullan, AN.
Yeah.
And if you want to connect, do just send a message through, because I get so many connection requests at the moment that just send a message through and say you're interested. Otherwise, there is my website, makingprojectswork.co.uk, and pretty much everything and my contact details are on there as well. Fantastic. It'd be lovely to hear from people.
Good. Thank you so much for giving me so much time, Penny, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. I think we're upgrading a program management guide is my next thing. Yeah, super. Thank you.
We'll enjoy that. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, Penny, for being on the show, and I'm sure that all of you out there found some really useful nuggets of information. Her books, Virtual Leadership, Practical Strategies for Success with Remote or Hybrid Work and Teams, and also Making Workshops Work, Creative Collaboration for Our Time, are both available. You can get them on Amazon and stuff. If you jump along to my website, nigelcreaser.com, and click on the link to the shop, you can follow the links there, and I get a little kickback from Amazon if you buy it through that way. So yeah, jump and get them. I highly urge you to do so, because in this day and age, that virtual leadership is something we are all going to have to become good at to succeed. And that's it, really. All that leaves me to say is look after yourself and speak to you again soon. Bye. If you enjoyed the show, it would be brilliant if you would like to support it. Number of ways you can do that. Number one is sharing it with your friends and colleagues. The more people who hear about it, the more people get the experience from my fantastic guests. If you want to go a bit more than that, you could jump onto wherever you listen to this and give me a review. 5 stars would be lovely. And if you want to look at throwing some cash towards me, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can pop along to the Patreon/SundayLunchPM there, or you could grab one of the books that I've published over the years and obviously get a little bit of cash from those. On the website, under the shop, under the shop, I've got links to all of my previous guests' books. Andy and Joel's is on there. And if you jump along to there, you can buy a copy of their books, and I get a little kickback from that too. And obviously, with our new headline sponsor of Templo, popping along, signing up, and if you end up using it, I will get a kickback there as well. So finally, obviously, as I say every time, the most important thing though is come back next time. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.